This episode of On the Beat is brought to you by Ingles. Shop online with Ingles Curbside Pickup. New curbside stores opening every week. Please welcome Mike Griffith.
Well, hey everybody, Mike Griffith here, and welcome to tonight's show. I'm glad that you could join me. Hoping to have Jack Ebling join me tonight. He's having some issues right now, apparently. I'll see if I can get my producer, Michael Carvel, to help us out with that. But a lot to talk about tonight. Obviously, a lot of turnover, carryover from the SEC championship game from Saturday night. It is what it is, and it's not going away. And you know, I heard Brandon's show today on Dog Nation Daily. I thought Brandon did a really nice job breaking down how did we get here, what's going on. Obviously, everybody's got an opinion on this. All right, it's inescapable. And you guys saw me do the show last night. We did a special on the beat. We did a show last week. And I'm just going to reiterate this just at the start, top of the show. It's okay to have a different opinion. Both of these guys play for the football team. They're both Georgia Bulldogs. And you can have a different opinion without being overly critical or getting ugly about one player or another. And that's okay to do. All right. That's why you go to the games. That's why different people wear different jerseys of different players. You like different running backs. You want different receivers to get the ball thrown to them. But the quarterback is the focal point of every single football team. And it's inescapable. So there's going to be issues with it. It's going to come up. There's no escape. People are going to talk about it. And there's just not much else that can be done except talk about it until Kirby makes a decision. And we're going to see what happens with Kirby Smart. It's his call, nobody else's. And we'll find out what Georgia Bulldogs are going to do. So I gave my talk earlier tonight. I did an appearance on the SEC Network with Feinbaum. Of course, you know, the people want to rebel rouse and get fired up. And I made my presentation by starting out with a story about the 2017 season. And there was a football team in the 2017 season that was playing their rival in their final regular season game of the year. And they lost this game 26-14 to this team. They were outgained by 94 yards, and they were only 3 of 11 on third downs. And that team was Alabama. And it was Tua that didn't play. Nick Saban did not go to the bench for Tua Tagovailoa when he lost to Auburn 26-14 and got outgained by 94 yards. Georgia was outgained by 81 yards. Instead of 3 of 11 on third down, they were 3 of 12 on third down. Instead of losing 26-14, they lost 41-24. And Kirby did not go to JT Daniels. It happens, all right? Kirby made the decision to stick with Stetson because he believed that was what was going to help Georgia win. So keep this in mind, you know, when you have a different opinion or when you're critical, that the head coach wants to win more than anybody, and the head coach has more information available to him than anyone. Now, in hindsight, Monday morning quarterback, 2020. It's 2020 hindsight vision. And all of us can second guess. Well, why didn't he try this? Why didn't he try that? Because Kirby believed that Stetson still gave him the best chance to win. I would say he believed that because that was the game plan they worked on. And the reality of it is, it's a different offense with Stetson Bennett than it is JT Daniels. It is. JT is a drop back passer, and Stetson Bennett is a guy that plays play action. You know, Jordan Rodgers talked about that the other day. You know, he had a quote. He said they have a style issue on offense. They're really good. Georgia's really good when they can dictate and run the football, play ball control, and play that play action game with Stetson. When it's not that, they're in trouble, right? Dan Mullen said the same thing. Alabama was able to force Stetson Bennett into a drop back game. And Mullen said that. You're forcing a guy who's not a drop back quarterback to have to make tight throws in tight windows. That's not what he does. He's done some of that, but that's not Stet's forte. His forte is play action game, scramble, get on the perimeter. He can tuck it, he can run it. Well, Alabama had that covered. And you were in longer down and distance because your run game wasn't efficient on first and second down. So you end up in third and long. And that does not go well with Stetson Bennett's skill set. Okay? As Mullen said, you're a team that's based on run play action, and you're putting your quarterback in a drop back mode. That was Dan Mullen talking, doing the analysis for SEC Network. He second-guessed Kirby not kicking a field goal at the end on the last play of the third quarter, down 2 touchdowns. I don't know about that. I don't know if I minded going for it on 4th and 10. I do agree, though, with Stetson, you're going to have trouble in obvious passing situation, and there's metrics that support that, okay? On third down situations, throwing the football, Stetson is 21 of 44 passing, but he's only converted first downs on third down throws 29% of the time, 13 to 44 in SEC games. Against Alabama the other night on third and fourth down passes, Stetson was 3 of 10, and he was sacked twice. All right, so you're under 30%. Now, JT Daniels played in 3 SEC games, South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Missouri. He's 10 of 11 on third downs, converting those third downs 10 of 11, okay? But he's a drop back passer. So that's what JT does. Now, here's the question, and Bill Connolly is one of the most respected writers and metrics guys at ESPN. And I'm going to read what Bill wrote because I thought this was pretty interesting. And I think this is kind of where we sit. Connolly's conclusion is Kirby Smart's got a heck of a decision to make, right? He says, before Saturday, Stetson Bennett had been on the field for just 1 second half drive in which Georgia wasn't winning by at least 14 points. In other words, there was no situations that equaled what happened against Alabama. Georgia had been winning by so much in the second half, we'd never really seen this offense under pressure. Against Alabama, Stetson had 6 drives like that, and he threw 2 interceptions with 2 turnovers on downs. So 4 out of 6 times, 2 interceptions, 2 turnovers on downs, scored 7 points. That's what happened against Alabama in the second half. Georgia scored twice on its first 3 drives of the game, and then only scored twice after that. And here's the conclusion. It's fair to wonder if Smart is just stuck in the Stone Age when defense won championships and the quarterback's main job was simply not to lose the game. He wouldn't be either the first or last defensive coordinator turned head coach to follow that line of thinking. And I will say, I have seen that before. Gene Stallings coached that way, and Mark D'Antonio coached that way. They were both former college defensive backs, just like Kirby Smart. The DCIC, defensive coordinator in charge. Now, this is where I'll disagree with Connolly, or this is where I'll provide more insight than I think people are giving Kirby credit for. After last season, after seeing a historically good LSU up close in 2019, and after getting scorched by a historically good Alabama last season and a really good Florida, Kirby Smart made a decision that he was going to open things up, right? Actually, before that, after LSU, he hired Todd Monken, who had the most prolific pass offense, set records at Tampa Bay for passing yardage. He hired him. They recruited George Pickens. They recruited Dominic Blaylock. Kirby recruited Jermaine Burton. He didn't recruit these guys because he planned on running it 55 times and throwing it 11 like they did against Arkansas, okay? That was plan B. Plan A for Kirby Smart, hiring Todd Monken and recruiting top-flight receivers, was to open up the offense. Kirby saw that. But at the start of the year, circumstances led Kirby to adapt. JT got banged up. Pickens was hurt. Blaylock was hurt. Burton was hurt. Darnell Washington was hurt. And you were left with a very inexperienced receiving corps. Ladd McConkey didn't even catch a pass last year. Brock Bowers wasn't even in that program. Adonai Mitchell wasn't even the program. Kearis Jackson was injured at the start of the year, right? So Kirby's looking at this and he's going, why are we playing a drop back passing game with 3 or 4 wide when we've only got 5 or 6 receivers that are healthy? Remember when he said that? It's hard to go 4 and 5 wide when you don't have that many receivers. Remember when Kirby said that? So Kirby did what great coaches do. And he adapted the Georgia offense to the talent that he had. JT's a little banged up. The receivers are all hurt. Guess you're going to have to go with more of a running game. Guess you're going to go with a little bit of a play action game. And meantime, the defense played out of their minds. They played better than any defense in the last 35 years. You had to go back to 1986 Oklahoma to find another Georgia defense, to find another defense in the country that gave up less than 6.9 points per game. And it was 1986 Oklahoma. So Kirby found something. He adapted to the talent. Monken adapted to the talent that they had. And they won, and they won, and they won. And it got to the point where we would ask Kirby about quarterbacks, and Kirby would say, not going to change because of continuity. He liked the continuity. The team's winning. The confidence is building. You're thinking that you can win like this. All right. Saturday night happens. The defense ain't what we thought it was. The secondary, which we saw signs of all year, folks, okay? Clemson, there was 4 pass interference penalties. South Carolina hit 4 plays longer than 30 yards. You saw the beginning of that Tennessee game. They just couldn't sustain it. There was signs all year long that the defense could be suspect in the secondary. I talked about it. People would argue it. I see it with my own eyes. I'm telling you, these cornerbacks, it's not Stokes and Campbell back there. DK has come in. I think he's been adequate. Keeley, he's only a freshman. He's still learning. He missed last year with the injury. Green and growing. Christopher Smith, I don't know how he got back and played. What a heroic effort. He's not 100% though. Dan Jackson's not a cover guy. Okay, he's a safety that's going to play close to the line of scrimmage, but he's not really going to cover anybody. A former walk-on. You know, Kirby's giving him a shot. Breeny, right? William Poole. He's Amir Speed. He's given guys a shot. It doesn't help that Nyland Green had his off-the-field issues and didn't turn out to be that star freshman cornerback worthy of the number 1 that he got. That didn't help. He busted. Kamari Lassiter, he's getting better, but not ready for prime time yet, apparently. Jalen Kimber, injury. Man, that hurts you. Sticky corner was going to start, I think. Tyke Smith, injury. Definitely hurt Georgia. You get this All-American from West Virginia. And then, you know, this is after a year where you lost 8 guys. So Kirby doesn't have much to operate with in the secondary. You better believe that him and Adai and Muschamp, you couldn't play for another school that's going to coach you up better in the secondary than the University of Georgia. All you got to do is look at all the first-round picks and the guys in the NFL. Kirby, Muschamp, Adai, these are the best secondary coaches in the country. But it's kind of like NASCAR, right? We always used to say you got what you got when you unload the truck. You're only going to get so much faster. You only got so much horsepower. And right now, Georgia's lacking it in that secondary. So you can argue and say it was the defense that lost. Okay, it was. But the answer is not to have less offense. If you got a defense that's giving up points, you better have an offense that can score. You better outscore them. That's what you got to do, man. It's not my fault they changed the rules. It's not my fault all these games are being played indoors on tracks with perfect weather conditions and no breeze. It's totally set up for the offense to blow up. And guess where the national title game is? It's indoors at Lucas Oil Stadium. And Alabama's going to spread the field, and Bryce Young's going to run around, and he's going to put up another 400 yards, and he score at least 27 points again. So if you're Georgia, how do you beat that? Can you do it with the play action ground and pound? I don't know. That's for Kirby Smart to decide. Or do you right now make the move and say, let's go back to plan A? Because George Pickens is back. Not 100%, but in 3 weeks, he's going to be 3 weeks better. Blaylock's back. All right? Not 100%, but here's the key. Ladd McConkey ain't the same Ladd McConkey that you saw against Clemson. Ladd McConkey is turning into a star right before our eyes. Brock Bowers is Captain America. He's a different guy than he was in the first game. He's a veteran now. My goodness, he has 49 catches on the year? I think that's as many as Riley Ridley had in 2018. So Adonai Mitchell, he's gotten better and experienced, right? Jermaine Burton, healthy again, key guy. So now all of a sudden, when Kirby hits the reset button and reevaluates this with Todd Monken, because Monken, you tell Monken what you give Monken the quarterback and he's going to draw it up. He's a great play caller. He's a great coordinator. But Monken's offense is the pro style spread and air raid. That's what he was brought here to run, right? He's been making chicken salad out of the talent that he has because he didn't have all those receivers and he didn't have the drop back guy with the NFL arm that can make all the throws. He didn't have that. So he's been doing the best with what he's got. So now Kirby's got to look at it and he's got to say, does Georgia run what they've been running all year with Stat and do it better and make better decisions? Or in these 3 weeks, do you go back to your original plan, what you did in the offseason, what you did in the spring game, what you did at the start of the year? I don't remember how many points you scored on South Carolina. I know Vanderbilt, it was 35-0 in the first quarter. Do you go back to that? It's a gamble either way. And then what you've got to factor into that decision is your offensive line good enough to protect JT Daniels? Have they grown? Can the tackles handle the pass rush or not? So there's a lot of questions for Kirby Smart and his staff to think about. And then you got to factor in the defense. Do you think your defense, the next time you play Alabama, can keep Alabama in check long enough where your offense can be patient and pound it and use Jake Camarda and punt it? And Kirby is the one who has all this data at his disposal. He knows who's healthy. He knows who looks like what in practice. And then he's got to make a decision. In the meantime, we've all got opinions. I don't mind sharing mine. I said that I think if they make the change, they win the national title. But part of the reason why I think they win the national title if they make the change is psychological. You just got beat by Alabama for the second time with Stetson Bennett. My concern, if I was the head coach, would be, does the team still believe that Stetson Bennett can beat Alabama? Or do you change and breathe life because now it's something new and the offense is opening up and the receivers are getting the passes and the ball's getting spread and it's just we're all, to me, that's what lights the fire is the quarterback change. Not sticking with guy that's already been beat twice by him. That's my opinion. I'm not in the locker room. Now, what I do know is that the receivers would rather have JT Daniels at quarterback. I know that. That's not rocket science. Of course, they would rather have the guy that's going to throw 30 to 35 passes a game than the guy that's going to throw 15 to 20. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's best. And that's what Kirby Smart has to manage and decide. And that's going to happen over the course of time. Because this week, everybody is kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not unwinding, unwinding a little bit, I guess, from the game. They have their finals, decompressing before they get back at it next week. They're kind of decompressing. Kirby's out recruiting. He's got to be focused. He's got to compartmentalize. He's got to go in these living rooms and sell the program. He's going to be getting feedback from these recruits. He's going to be getting feedback from his leadership committee. And he does that regularly. So what I say, what you say, what's on Twitter, what's on Feinbaum, Kirby Smart is going to make his decision independent of that based on what he sees, what he knows, and what he believes will lead Georgia to the national championship. So whatever Kirby does, it's the right decision because he's the head coach. He's the head coach. Now, you might disagree with it. I might disagree with it. Dan Mullen might disagree with it. Tim Tebow. This is Kirby Smart's program. I want to be clear on that. So it's okay to have an opinion, but at the end of the day, you got to understand who runs the show. At the end of the day, you got to understand that Georgia football would not be what it is right now if it wasn't for Kirby Smart. That doesn't mean Kirby's going to bat 1,000. But what I get upset about is when people start to go down this revisionist history road. Well, Kirby's always blown it with the quarterbacks. No, he hasn't. Jake Fromm was the quarterback in 2017 because Georgia was winning, and he was the more mature and adjusted quarterback. All right? It's not all what happens on the field, folks. Take that for what it is. That's why Jake was the quarterback in 2017. Jake Fromm was the quarterback in 2018 because he knew the playbook and he had experience. And the Justin Fields that you see right now in Chicago, the grown man, is not the same Justin Fields that was at Georgia in 2018. That was a true freshman who was learning the playbook and trying to work his way in. I don't know what would have happened in 2019. I think Justin might have been the guy because the receiving core fell off, and I think Kirby might have put a playmaker back there. But Justin had an opportunity, goes to Ohio State, and he did great. So let that go. Kirby didn't mismanage that. Somebody was going to be on the outs. If you bench the guy that takes you to the national title game for a true freshman who's learning the playbook, and now you can only run a quarter of the plays, and he can't get through his progressions yet because he's adjusting to the game, which takes time. Jake had to adjust. Jake got to hand off to Sony Michel and Nick Chubb while he was learning the offense. Justin didn't have that opportunity. But so when people go revisionist history and say, well, Kirby just blows it with quarterbacks, that's not true. Totally disagree. And I can't sit here and tell you that he's blown this because the way I'm looking at it, I see a 14 playoff and I see Georgia in it. I see Georgia with everything in front of them that they want. Okay, they didn't win the SEC championship game, but they were the number one team for 8 straight weeks. They had their first undefeated regular season since 1982, and they can still win the national championship. And I believe they will. Now, the one quote they take from me, and this is when you do the TV stuff, they take one quote, you do a 15-minute interview, they take one quote, put on Twitter, and I said I think they'll win a national championship if they change quarterbacks. I also said I'm not saying that they can't win a national championship with Stetson Bennett. For all I know, they can win it with Stet too. But when push came to shove and I was asked about the quarterbacks, that was my opinion. I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't. But whatever Kirby does, it's his team. So understand that. Have your opinions, but at the end of the day, remember who's running the show. And that's kind of my take on that whole quarterback situation. I've given you numbers. I've given you metrics. I think we're all starting. Hopefully, everyone is kind of getting it out of their system. We're all going to be watching. It's going to be the story. All right. The quarterback's going to be the story. When Kirby comes back next week, we're going to ask Kirby Smart what he's doing with quarterbacks. He's probably not going to say very much because he doesn't have to, because it's his team. And he doesn't want to let Michigan know what he's doing. And if you listen to what he said he has the utmost confidence in Stetson, and he's got the confidence in JT. So Kirby's going to do Kirby. We're going to talk about it. We're going to have fun discussing it. It's exciting. Georgia has the national championship within the grasp. We'll see how it plays out. That's kind of my take on that. Like I said, still working to see if we can get Jack Ebeling. It looks like we're not going to be able to have Jack. I'm told it's a technology issue, unfortunately. Man, sorry about that. Jack was going to give us some insight into Michigan State. Tonight, the Heisman Trophy finalists were announced, and I cannot wait to give you my take on that. But first, I want to take a moment, and I want to recognize our sponsor, Ingles. Ingles has stayed with us and supported our program here at Dog Nation. We appreciate Ingles. We appreciate the trust, the reliability, the consistency that we've had with Ingles throughout the whole pandemic. Ingles delivered. They continue to deliver. And let's take a moment now to recognize our sponsor, Ingles.
It's in our hearts to feel for you. There's been ups and downs, turnarounds, good days and some bad. But we stand together for worse and for better. We'll always have your back. With open arms, heart to heart, hand in hand. Community strong.
So just like we thought, the Orange Bowl will have a Heisman Trophy finalist, but it's not who we thought it was going to be. We were all thinking that maybe Jordan Davis could get that trip to New York. I know that BA had talked a lot about it on Dog Nation Daily. I know there were billboards. I know the Georgia fans were behind it. They voted for Jordan Davis and different, types of polls and surveys and everything they could do to get Jordan Davis to New York. I'll be honest. I saw this list of Heisman Trophy finalists, and I was dumbfounded by it. I was shocked. I can't reveal my vote to you because there's a rule that you can't reveal your vote if you're a Heisman voter until after it's been announced. But I think I can tell you that I didn't have 2 of the 3 finalists on my ballot. So that just tells you that I'm shocked. I can't reveal my vote. Again, I don't want to do anything. Excuse me. I don't want to do anything to violate the trust. I've enjoyed my Heisman vote, but this year surprised me. And speaking of having different opinions, I think we all have a different opinion on the Heisman Trophy. Maybe not for number 1. I think number 1 is fairly obvious, but 2 and 3. So the finalists are Alabama quarterback Bryce Young, Ohio State quarterback C.J. Stroud, Pittsburgh quarterback Kenny Pickett, and Michigan defensive end Aiden Hutchinson. Aiden Hutchinson, the Michigan, he's got 14 sacks. How does Aiden Hutchinson end up a finalist over Alabama's Will Anderson? I'm amazed by that. If anybody was going to make it off the defense, and let's be honest, when Georgia lost the other night, I think we all kind of knew that was probably it for JD. We probably knew Jordan Davis wasn't going to be on a finalist once they lost. If they would have won, I think he had a shot. But my goodness, in 2021, Will Anderson leads the country with 30.5 tackles for loss. And he's got 14 and a half sacks playing in the SEC. Now, Aiden Hutchinson, and I have seen Aiden Hutchinson, by the way, projected as the first round of the draft. He's got 14 sacks. So he's 6'6". He's 265 pounds, and he's going to be coming after whoever's at quarterback. What Michigan does well is they get the quarterback. They have 2 really good defensive edge rushers. Their defense is strong. I think that Georgia will be challenged to run against Michigan. I think they're a solid defense. Where Georgia has the winning edge on Michigan, in my opinion, is that Cade McNamara is not a mobile quarterback. And Michigan has kind of a little bit of a plodding offense. I don't think Michigan, and I could eat my words for this, but I don't think Michigan can effectively run the ball consistently. I don't think they can do it. I don't think they can play power football with this Georgia front. I think the key for Georgia is to beat Georgia. I think you got to have a mobile quarterback. I think that helps. That buys time, and you've got to have some guys on the perimeter that are going to scare people. And I just don't know that I see that with Michigan. Cade McNamara, he was a 4-star recruit in 2019. He started out as a 4-stringer. But he hasn't been dominating. Michigan's got a couple of running backs. They kind of got a 2-man show, Blake Corum and Hassan Haskins. They kind of like to use Haskins between the tackles, short yardage situations, red zone. I think he might like Zamir White. Corum is quicker. He can break the big gains for them. He was slowed up a little bit by a high ankle sprain and hasn't really gotten all the way back. But by the time the Orange Bowl rolls around, I think he'll be back. So I think Michigan's got a nice 1-2 punch. The receivers, it was kind of a big unknown. They lost Donovan Peoples-Jones last year and Nico Collins to the NFL draft. It's kind of put a lot of pressure on some younger guys, much like Georgia. Cornelius Johnson is a tall, lengthy guy. He's their number 1 target. They got a true freshman named Andre Anthony, had a big game against Michigan State. That was a game they led by 16 and lost, by the way. The offensive line is experienced. Now, these guys are good, so it's going to be a challenge for the Georgia front. But I feel like Georgia and Kirby Smart and Dan Lanning with those fronts, I think they're going to be able to come up with some pressure packages to get to Cade. So defensively, Michigan has not blitzed as much this year. They've got Mike McDonald as their defensive coordinator. He was with the Baltimore Ravens before he came to Michigan. He was a GA at Georgia, actually, in 2010 under Mark Richt. You heard Kirby Smart say they were familiar with these coaches. He was also a quality control guy with Georgia 2011 to 13 before he got that job with Baltimore. So knows a little bit about Georgia. I don't know how much that translates. He was on Mark Richt's staff. So it's kind of interesting. But the David Ajabo guy, he's the other defensive end. Interesting story. A guy that was born in Nigeria, raised in Scotland. So you got Hutchinson with 13 sacks and Ajabo has 11. So you got two guys coming off the ends. I look at it like two Nolan Smiths, right? So they've got some dudes that can bring pressure off the end. Going to be a really big game for Jamari Salyer and Warren McClendon. This is going to be a very big game. I think the tight ends factor in with as far as John Fitzpatrick staying in protection, Darnell Washington. Now that might lend you to think that Kirby stays with Stetson because Michigan's got this pressure package, but then again, he may look at it and say, JT gets rid of the ball quick and we're going to spread the field. So it's really a tough call for the Michigan game. But, you've only got 10 days between the Michigan game and the Alabama game. So do you got to pick the quarterback now that you're going to play against Alabama, or can you work both of them? That's why I said there's so many ways that this quarterback situation can go. I don't think anybody should get married to any concept. Again, I said I believe Georgia's going to win the national championship. I'm sticking to it. I'm sticking to it. I believe that Kirby's going to do whatever it takes. Maybe it's riding Stetson the whole way. Maybe it's riding JT the whole way. Maybe it's a rotation. Heck, I don't know. Maybe they're play out of the Wildcat. I just know how much they invested last summer. And I know the feeling and the vibe that's been over there in Butts-Mehre Heritage Hall. And I don't know how many of you watched the show last night, but I said this. I said, what's fascinating to me about Butts-Mehre Heritage Hall is it's spotless. Everything is shined. Everything is in place. But you can always smell the sweat. You can always smell the perspiration. You just know that there's hard work that's going on in there. There's student athletes walking through those hallways, breathing heavy. The Georgia football has been on a mission. It's been a 6-year journey, and I just don't think the guys, they've got great leadership over there. Nakobe Dean, I hope you guys saw, he won the Butkus Award on Sunday. That's quite an honor. He's only the second Bulldog to win that. The other one was Roquan Smith in 2017. As for JD, as for Jordan Davis, he's a finalist for the Outland Trophy. That goes to the best interior lineman in the country. A lot of offensive linemen on that list. JD's the only defensive lineman among the finalists. He's a finalist for the Nagurski Trophy. That's based in Charlotte, North Carolina. You wonder a little bit if there might be a little home cooking. Nothing wrong with that. Jordan's a great community figure. I think they'd do themselves well. He's also a finalist for the Walter Camp Player of the Year. One of the guys that got snubbed this year was Jake Camarda. Unbelievable. How is Jake Camarda not the first-team All-SEC punter? I was just shocked. And then I realized what happened. Jake hasn't punted enough to qualify for the national stats. So whoever these people are that voted for this probably looked at the national stats and didn't see Jake in there. Jake averages more than the Texas A&M punter. And you saw Jake with that 68-yard punt against Bama down to the 2 or the 3. Listen, Camarda, and I've been critical of him in past years for not coming through in big games, but this year, Jake Camarda's been money. He's been money. He was 5 of 5 on his kickoffs in that game. His punts have been fantastic. I wouldn't be surprised if Jake ended up one of the permanent captains. He has had an unbelievable senior season. And recently I saw where Jim Nagy, the Senior Bowl, said that Jake and this Penn State punter are 2 of the best punting prospects that have come out in the last 10 to 15 years. 10 to 15 years. So Jake Camarda is kind of an unsung hero. I want to give him his due tonight. I don't think people are talking about Jake enough, but he's flipped the field. He's been consistent. He's been clutch. And I think Georgia, he's a winning edge for Georgia to win a national championship. Jack Podlesny, earlier in the year, I think we talked about it. We thought he was a little shaky early. He missed that field goal against Clemson. Forget the game that was tight. He missed another one. He's been money. He was money in the SEC championship game. I feel like Jack Podlesny is money in the bank now. I think he's in a groove, man. So your special teams are good with your kicker, your punter. I'd like to see a little bit more on the punt return. I like Ladd McConkey back there. I know Kirby's loyal to Kearis Jackson. I feel like Kearis is still maybe not quite where he was last year health-wise. Just looks like he's missing a half a step, but he's a warrior, and he's a guy that's earned a lot of trust. And you know that Kirby has a lot of loyalty to players. It's really hard for him to move players out for younger players. That's one thing I've noticed. And I've heard people tell me that Saban's different. That, hey, Saban, he doesn't care who you are. He doesn't care what your story is. If there's somebody better than you, you're fired and the next guy's up. That's just the way it is at Bama. I think Kirby is a little bit more of a player's coach. I think he's a little bit more invested and a little bit more loyal. I can't tell you what's wrong and what's right, but I'm just telling you that's my observation, because I think we've seen instances where maybe there's been a younger guy, more talented at position, and maybe we haven't seen that guy make that jump over that guy because of the trust and the experience, right? Just because you're more talented doesn't mean you're going to perform better in some situations. I think Kirby has a lot of value to experience. We see that at different, maybe at the backfield with the running, because right now I feel like Kenny McIntosh is playing better than anybody at running back right now. I think, Cook had his moments. I think Zamir's solid. I think Cook has been still solid, but right now Kenny McIntosh seems to be hitting a groove. He looks like the hot hand. The last 2 games, he's had the longest run. He's very versatile. He'd be a guy that would probably benefit if they go to JT Daniels. Again, the offense changes so much. You're going to run it more with Stet. You're going to throw it more with JT. You're going to check down more with JT. Stet's probably going to go to the tight ends a little bit more. So again, it's a very complex conversation and it's a very complex discussion. And you need to think about all these things and imagine everything Kirby Smart's thinking about. You've been doing something the same way for 8 weeks. You had a hiccup. Is it enough to change? Or, because you better think about this, right? It's pretty fascinating. And again, I know that people are going to keep talking about it. As far as continuing the Michigan, they have had a habit of kind of rotating guys during drives just to change things up on the offense, a lot like Georgia. So they have depth also. They're going to throw different packages at Georgia. They're going to make it tough on Todd Monken. I think Monken has done a great job. I think Monken probably deserved to be one of the Broyles finalists. I saw Dan Lanning was there tonight. He was one of the Broyles finalists. I don't know if they're announcing that tonight or not. Not keeping up with that as well. Maybe some of you folks are looking at that on Twitter. Not really sure. I'll tell you this. I looked at the Football Writers Association voting, and I was amazed at how many people had Michigan number 1. I was amazed at how – and I didn't think I had Georgia number 2. I said Alabama 1, Georgia 2, Michigan 3. But when I looked at the ballots, I was in the minority. Most people had Michigan, Alabama 1 and 2, and Georgia 3. And I'm thinking, what did I miss here? Michigan was lucky to beat Penn State. Michigan blew a 16-point lead and lost to a Michigan State team. No offense, Mel Tucker, but I don't think is that great from a talent standpoint. Yeah, they blew out Iowa, but I think, in my book, as far as past champions, relative to other West Division champions I've seen, Iowa was losing to Colorado State at halftime. Vanderbilt beat Colorado State, and that's a lot of transitive properties. But my point is this. Georgia lost to Alabama 41-24 in a championship game. Michigan lost a 16-point lead to a Michigan State team that doesn't have half as many 5 stars and 4 stars. That's just Mel Tucker doing it with Mears and a running back, Kenneth Walker. I wonder what that conversation will be like between Mel and Kirby. Does Kirby call up to East Lansing and say, hey, Mel, do you got one of those quality control guys that maybe could spend a little time with me going over the Michigan talent from your scouting report? You got to think that there's a network there. You got to think that Kirby and Mel Tucker work together a little bit, right? I don't know what Kirby could tell Mel about Pitt. That's going to be a whale of a game, Michigan State Pitt. But all these coaches, there's a lot of networking going on. And I feel strongly that Kirby and his staff are going to have Michigan scouted. I feel strongly that that Georgia, provided that the mindset is right, provided that everybody is moving in the same direction, and that this quarterback thing doesn't get divisive. It cannot be divisive. Kirby's talked all year about the strength of the team being the team. He's got to make sure that whatever direction they go in, everybody's got to be enthusiastic and everybody has to believe. Because if you're not enthusiastic and if everybody doesn't believe, you could lose to Michigan. Because I'm going to tell you, Michigan is a blue and maize freight train running downhill. Those folks are fired up. This is the best football Michigan has played since they won a share of the national championship in 1997. They finally beat Ohio State. Imagine, how Georgia would feel if they finally beat Alabama, right? What is the losing streak at? I want to say 6. Is that right? 6, 7? Michigan snapped an 8-game losing streak to the Ohio State. They're fired up. They feel like it's their year. They're going to the Orange Bowl. There's going to be more Michigan fans in the Orange Bowl than Georgia fans. You can count on it. They've got a little bit of a home field advantage because of the Snowbirds. There's a lot of retired people from Michigan that are already down there in Florida, and they're going to buy these tickets. In fact, they probably already bought them before they even went on sale for the game. So Georgia fans have been unbelievable taking over stadiums. They took over Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I couldn't believe it. We were guessing 3-1, 4-1, and then when the fans at the end, wow, this could have been like 5 or 6-1. There was some dog fans there. They went to Notre Dame. They've been to Nashville, took over, been to Auburn. This is going to be Tennessee. Saw a lot, maybe 20, 25,000 at Tennessee. This is going to be tough. This is going to be a tough one because Michigan is going to show up en masse. Detroit is a huge media market, comparable in size to Atlanta. And Michigan has one of the largest fan bases in the world. So it's going to be on. And there's going to be a lot of electricity, a lot of juice, and it's going to be on Kirby and his staff to make sure these players are all in and believe in the plan. That's been one of the keys to Georgia ascending. Remember what Kirby was talking about, got to get better every week. Now, the loss, I don't think people understood this when people asked Kirby if he thought, is this going to affect? He said, no, it's not going to affect. Kirby said some of the best lessons that you ever get come after a defeat. So he said, right now, all the guys are like sponges. They're listening. They're learning. Nobody's taking anything for granted. I mean, heck, Georgia won 17 games in a row. It was the longest win streak in the nation. So when you start winning and winning and winning, it's just human nature to take things for granted, especially when you play those 2 cream puff games, Georgia Tech and Charleston Southern. In hindsight, yeah, you got to rest some guys, but I think you lost a little bit of your rhythm there. I think you lost a little bit about that sense of urgency that you have to have against SEC teams. The speed is a little bit different. The guys you're covering are a little faster. They jump a little higher. The quarterback was like no one they played. And Kirby said that. Kirby identified that from the start. He mentioned Bryce Young. He knew how good Bryce was, and he knew how dangerous Bryce Young could be. Those defensive linemen, as good as they did, they got to do a little bit better. They gave Bryce just a crack. He doesn't need much. He's very good. It's hard to believe. And I was wrong. Let me just tell you, I was wrong about Bryce Young. I was wrong. I didn't think Bryce Young would make it to the finish line. I saw how small he was, and I said, this kid they're going to catch up to him. The SEC's too fast. You can run. You can't hide. They're going to catch him. He's going to get hurt. He's not going to be dirt. I was wrong. Bryce Young has done a masterful job. He's so smart. He has such a great pocket sense. Dog Nation went out to California last summer, talked to the folks at Mater Dei. We were the only ones that did that. And we did that because we knew that Bryce Young went there too. And we talked to Coach Rollinson about Bryce Young and Coach Money about Bryce Young. And they told us how special he was. They said he's a running back playing quarterback. I didn't know he could throw the ball like this. And when I spoke with Bryce's dad last week, let me tell you, first class all the way. Georgia recruited him, but they were already in on Alabama, but they had great things to say about Georgia. Always interesting to hear what people say about the Georgia staff. Everybody I talk to loves them some Georgia. So pretty fascinating story there with Bryce Young. I think I told you this the other night. Carson Beck was originally committed to Alabama, right? When Carson decommitted from Alabama, that's what opened up the scholarship for Bryce Young. How about that? So if Carson Beck would have stayed committed to Alabama, Bryce Young wouldn't be there. It's always interesting, and I talk with Jeff Sintel, and you guys, I know you watch Jeff on Wednesday night before the hedges. Jeff can tell you how all this goes together. We love listening to Jeff at Dog Nation with his stories and his fun anecdotes. He's, like I said, he's kind of the guy that makes everybody laugh, makes everybody's day a little bit better. And if he can't do it, he brings that fun dog Peaches on the set, and then we all just melt, right? So it's interesting, though, the Bryce Young situation. So we'll see. And I said this, too. I said this last night, and I'll say it again. And again, I don't want to disrespect Michigan. This is no disrespect to Michigan. But in some ways, I think Georgia's better off playing Michigan than Cincinnati. Hear me out. So the game's in Miami instead of Dallas. Now, in Dallas, you would have had a bigger fan gathering than Cincinnati, and you would have been indoor in a climate-controlled environment. And that would have been to your advantage. But you would have been playing a mobile quarterback. You would have been playing a team that was familiar with Georgia. You would have been playing a team that had the revenge factor going. You would have been playing a team that would have known that they can go toe-to-toe with you because they did last year. And there's a value to that. Michigan doesn't know what's about to hit them. They really don't. The last time Michigan, I think they played Alabama, I want to say, was it 2012? Brady Hoke was the coach, and they played Alabama in an opener. Kirby was the D coordinator at Alabama. I can't remember the year. Was it 12, 13? It was before Harbaugh got there. Might have been 14. So I want to say Harbaugh's first year was 15 or 16, right? But Kirby played him as the Alabama D coordinator. It's been a long time. I don't know if these Michigan guys have any idea what's about to hit them with Georgia. I know they haven't seen a front like this. I know they haven't. Alabama had the experience against them last year. That helps. That familiarity helps. And I don't think Michigan is going to be ready for what Kirby and that defensive front are going to bring. In some ways, maybe Georgia needed that loss. Maybe Kirby needed a catalyst for change, an impetus for change. And I've said this before. If you're winning doing something a certain way, why would you change it? Imagine this. Imagine an investment strategy. Let's just say that every month you put 10 into this, 5 into that, and 3 into this. And you make money every month doing it. 10, 5, 3, 10, 5, 3. And you're making money. You're not going to change it. But then all of a sudden you start losing money. Wait a minute. 10, 5, 3 doesn't work anymore. I might have to go 10, 3, 5 or 5, 10, 3. My point is Kirby Smart, and he told us this. Continuity. When we asked him, why didn't you play JT? Why didn't you? Continuity. Timing. He said, I'm not going to overthink this. That's what he said. What he was doing was working. Georgia was winning by an average margin of 40-8 in SEC games. So there was no impetus for change. Tell me why I should change. Okay, well now maybe you have a reason. Maybe not. Maybe Kirby steps back and says, you know what? Yeah, Bama beat us, but John Mechie's not on that team anymore. I don't think their offense can do what they did to us again. And I think that maybe Stetson can get coached up not to make those mistakes. So maybe, he goes down that road. Or maybe he goes, wow, Pickens, Burton, I want this explosive offense. I want to blow Michigan out. I don't want some smash mouth game going into the fourth quarter. I want to know that I can outscore Nick Saban and Alabama. And JT Daniels is 7-0. And I have confidence in him too. And how do they perform in practice? Maybe he steps back and says, you know what, Monken? Let's just watch a few days of practice. Let's just watch him and see what happens. Right? And he evaluates it like he evaluates every other position. He lets them compete. That's probably what'll happen. Maybe he says to Monken, hey, look, I know we like to go 70-30, but let's go 50-50. We got 3 weeks to play with this thing. Without overloading it, let's split the reps. So there's a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different ways that this can work out. Lots of different ways that this can work out. And I think you have to trust in Kirby Smart that he'll do it the right way. And he'll do it based on the information that he has that we don't have. So I'll take a look at your questions. I want to wrap it up. I want to thank Michael for his production tonight. I'm not sure, do we have any comments or questions in here, Michael? Can't really see any of the comments in here yet. Looking. Hang with me, guys. For some reason, I'm not seeing any of the comments in here. This has been a real technologically challenged program tonight. Apologize for that. Having some issues trying to see the questions. Does JT have a free transfer available? That was a question Brad Cassidy asked. JT would need to graduate in the spring, and if he graduates in the spring, he could be a graduate transfer somewhere. What other questions do you guys have for me? Explain how Auburn, right? Johnny Prescott. Johnny, that's a great question. Okay. This is how Auburn held Alabama to 0 points for 3 quarters. They played a very aggressive scheme with their cornerbacks, and they did not play much help on the back, right? You can play single safety, right, where you've only got one guy back there, kind of center field, or you can play what you call 2 deep, where you got 2 guys playing 2 half the field zones behind all the other coverage. Georgia likes to play a little bit of a shell back there so that nothing gets behind them. And Georgia's strategy is kind of like, you know what, our front 4 is so good, they can get pressure on you without blitzing, and then we're going to play coverage, and we're going to have the best of both worlds because we're going to have guys deep so you can't get behind us, but there's these dynamic pass rushers that are good enough to win their one-on-ones, and, you know, but Alabama pass protected well enough. Bryce Young bought enough time that receivers were able to get loose, find spots in these zones. Georgia had a few busts, and they took advantage. Auburn lining up man coverage, only one guy back there deep. I mean, they could have gotten beat for a touchdown today, but those guys played tight. They sent the extra rusher to get Bryce Young. They were aggressive. They sacked him 7 times. They gambled that they could get to Bryce before Bryce could find the open guy, and they won those gambles all the way until the final drive. And then they came out of it, and they went soft. And they said, all right, Bryce Young, you're going to have to be perfect and execute all the way down the field. And Bryce Young, 12 plays, 97 yards. Boom, 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 in 1 minute, 11 seconds. He ran 12 plays in 1 minute and 11 seconds. Bryce Young is that good, folks. I'm going to tell you something. Bryce Young is better in college, a better college quarterback than Mac Jones was. Better. Every bit as accurate, elusive. He doesn't have the receivers that Mac Jones does. My goodness, Devontae Smith, Jalen. He doesn't have those. Alex Leatherwood, Remington Award center, Outland Trophy left. He doesn't, or Najee Harris. He doesn't have that. If you gave Bryce Young those weapons, boom. I mean, Bryce Young is the deal. So, but that's how Auburn did it. That's how Auburn was able to do it. Was a very aggressive scheme. Now, I don't think Georgia can play that style. I don't think Keely Ringo can play that tight coverage like that. You know, you saw in the game he got beat on that 55-yard touchdown pass, even with Lewis Seen coming over the top to help him. Remember the safeties that are deep? I don't think he can play that same type and I don't think Kirby wants to gamble like that. Again, because why would you? Nobody had beat Georgia this way all year long. So why would Kirby think all of a sudden, right? So there's that. What other questions we got here? Questions, guys. You got anything else for me? Last call for, guys, don't be critical of players like that. It's just, that's not what these questions are about. That it's not conducive. Again, calling out players and saying they suck. That's not what's made Georgia. I'm just telling you. I've covered other programs. You know that. It's no secret. I've covered Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, Michigan State. I've been the beat writer. I've been around. It's been a great journey. Every opportunity I've had, it's been a step up. It's been a bigger, better organization. Obviously, Dog Nation, part of the AJC, the creative stuff that we do that doesn't happen other places. The trip to California that we do, everybody doing video shows. I don't need to tell you how good the programming is at Dog Nation, but my point is we serve an audience, and the reason it works is because Georgia's got such a supportive fan base that they love Georgia football, and they like coming together and talking about it. And 90% of the talk is positive. So you lose one game out of 18. Don't have a doggone meltdown and start calling people names, because that's not Georgia football. That's not. I've told you the culture here. It's a nice place. You got former coaches that live here. I've texted with Coach Donnan earlier tonight. Coach Goff lives here. Coach Rick moved back here. You know why? Because the fans are so supportive here. My goodness, we're having a Dog Nation cruise. I mean, who does that? But Georgia fans love Georgia. And they say, you know what? We want to hang out. We want to talk football. We want to go on a cruise. I mean, this is a really cool and unique place, and you're a part of that. You've helped make Georgia this. So don't lose that culture over one game. You're still in the Final Four. You're still in the Final Four. 2017 Alabama didn't even play in the SEC championship game. Nobody talks about that because they won the national title. Nobody talks. I bring it up. It upsets them that I bring it up because I don't think they should have got in. But nobody else talks about that. They got a national championship trophy, looks like any other one. You can win a national championship without winning the SEC. And I believe having a revenge factor over Alabama is going to work for you. I really do. But you got to make sure that everybody is on the same page, right? So Kirby's got to do that in Buttsmere Heritage Hall, and you guys have got to police each other in the fan base, because you don't want other schools taking snapshots of the screen, showing it to kids, saying, well, look what happened, because they do that, okay? All those extra coaches that programs have, they look for bulletin board, and they look for comments that make a school look bad. And you don't want to make your school look bad, especially when you've won 17 out of the last 18 games. Kelly Cole, I hear what you're saying. There's a pattern. I understand, Kelly, but listen. You've been in the top 10 4 straight years. That's a pattern too. That's a pattern. You've had the number 1 or number 2 or 3 recruiting class every year except for the first under Kirby. That's a pattern. Tennessee, they beat you once. Kirby's won the last 4 in a row. That's a pattern. You've dominated Auburn. You killed Georgia Tech. Kirby's gotten $180 million in facilities built. You got Josh Brooks as your AD. This guy worked under Nick Saban as a student coach. How many people have an AD like Josh Brooks that understand football, that can manage Kirby and work with Kirby, right? There's a lot of really, really positive things. So I understand the frustration about Alabama. Believe me, I get it. I've covered Alabama. I've covered Auburn. I've seen how rivalries work. Bama's been the thorn in the Georgia side. But look at it like this. Because you lost to Alabama, Kirby Smart has cause for change. He's got license to make whatever change he wants on this team. He can tell this guy that he's not starting anymore, this guy, because, guys, we lost, and now it's up to Kirby to make changes. When you're winning, it's hard to make changes. It's hard to tell a guy he's not starting anymore when all he's done is win. If JT Daniels hadn't gotten injured, he'd still be starting because he's never lost. At Georgia, he's 7-0. Right? So all I'm saying is look at the big picture. So Saturday night stunk if you're a Georgia fan, but look at it like this. You know what? Still in the Final Four, just like you would have been before, number 1. And number 2, Kirby now can make whatever change he wants. And let's see. I know. I see Scar, Josh, you guys are laughing. I'm going to say don't underestimate Kirby. I'm going to say it. And if he doesn't make changes, it's because he thinks he doesn't need to win. But I'm not, I went on TV today and I said that I thought they were going to win a national title. I'm not in this to be made a fool of, okay? I'm not a Georgia fan. You know this. I don't pom-pom. I don't have a Georgia sign on the wall. I'm paid to cover the team. I've got respect for the program that I cover. I've got respect for the fans that follow this program. I love college football. I'm a fan of college football. I've dedicated my life to becoming a professional and an expert on college football. But I'm not going to pick a team just because I cover them. I didn't pick them against Alabama the last time. Okay? I mean, so this time I did, but 2018 I didn't. I'm not going to pick Georgia to win just to pick Georgia to win. That's not how I operate. I want to be right. And I'm picking Georgia to win because I've sensed something special about this team. And because even though Kirby can be kind of cold and adversarial with the media, I don't know why he chooses to be that way, but he does. I guess because Saban was that way. But I know that in truth, he's really a cool guy. I've talked to him off the record in Destin, before. And when the lights and the camera's not on, he's a funny, cool, engaging guy. I don't know why he wants to be that guy behind the podium. Maybe it's easier not to answer questions. But in truth, he's got a great personality, and he's really warm, and the players see it, and the boosters see it. It's just when he does those press conferences, he gets kind of stiff. Jim Harbaugh is the same way. I saw Harbaugh at a camp, Sound Mind, Sound Body camp 5 years ago, and Harbaugh gave this gripping theatrical presentation where he did this bugle call for the Kentucky Derby and told the guys that the horses, their blood pressure goes up, their pulse rate goes up. After he did this bugle, I'm saying, this guy is incredible, theatrical, and engaging. But when you see Jim Harbaugh interviewed coming up to this game, you're not going to see that. For some reason, these guys shut it down in front of the camera. I don't understand. But I know that behind the scenes, they're both great recruiters. They're both engaging. And how can you not love this matchup? Former Michigan quarterback Jim Harbaugh, former Georgia safety Kirby Smart, the G, the Block M. They haven't played since 1965. This is unbelievable. The only thing that I wish Georgia was wearing their red. I hope Georgia breaks out the red pants, because if Michigan's going to go in those all blue uniforms that they wore and not go traditional, if they're not going traditional, then Georgia shouldn't go traditional. Break out them red pants. Break out the red pants. If Michigan's going to go all blue and they're not going to give you their traditional blue and gold pants, then you don't go traditional gray pants. You go red pants on them. That's what I say. Go red pants. They're going to go all blue. You go all red. You go red pants. Heck, I'd like to see Georgia wear all red. Let's blow it out of the water with these color uniforms. All red, all blue. That would just blow everyone's mind. I've wanted to see this game too. So tomorrow morning, Brandon Adams will be back. BA has been all over this. Okay, 10 o'clock. Tomorrow night, Connor Riley. Connor, you see Connor does a ton of stories. He does a great job picking up audio, metrics. Connor in coverage Wednesday night, Jeff Centel. Keep your ear to the ground on the recruiting. Not sure if we're doing a cover 4 this week. Have not heard. We may not. I don't know. I haven't seen the programming that far in advance. This is kind of an off week. I don't expect there to be any access at Georgia. Next week, I think there's going to be access with players, and then the cavalry arrives in Miami. I think I'm arriving on Christmas Day. I'm going to fly that morning. That's going to be my Christmas at the airport, and going down to Florida to make sure we're down there when the Bulldogs arrive so that we can give you all the coverage. Connor's coming down there. BA will be down there. We're going to blow it out of the water. So we appreciate you guys following us. I appreciate you following me on Twitter at Mike Griffith 32. I appreciate you guys hearing me out. Like I said, sometimes they put that one quote up on Twitter and I don't get to explain myself. But what's cool is I get to do that for this audience. And it's pretty cool. And I appreciate the feedback. So I want everybody to have a great Monday night and have a great week. Enjoy the week. All right. You're in the Final Four. Enjoy this. Make this an enjoyable time and look at it as entertainment. Look and see what Kirby Smart's going to do. He's a smart guy. No pun intended. So everyone have a great night and thanks for joining me.